This is the story of US Army World War II veteran Henry Lyman Bryant, who was born December 16, 1922 in Brockton, Massachusetts. He attended school there until the 8th grade, at which time he entered the manliest military school in Syracuse, New York. Unfortunately, Henry is now almost completely deaf, so his daughters, Janice and Jill, wrote the interview questions on a whiteboard for him to answer. Henry is so proud of his service to our country that he wore his uniform all day in anticipation of our interview.
I enlisted, yes. I was 20 years old as a second lieutenant. And my birthday was overseas.
Where did you go to basic training?
What'd she say? Had a basic training as a second lieutenant in Fort Benning, Georgia. Officers training. All second lieutenants went through it. In the Army, I was a first lieutenant, infantry. And then when I got out of that, we came back up to Maine, and I joined the reserves in Rockland, Army Reserves. And when that all ended up, I got my majority out of it. That's a major. And I retired. Went overseas, just outside of Le Mans, France, actually. And then I joined the 2nd Division, along with some of the rest of the second lieutenants. And from then on, it was strictly combat, all the way. Had a year of it. But when I got onto the mainland of France, a whole bunch of us did then, the fighting was up ahead of us. But in the interim, while we were getting ashore and going to where our units were, there was an airplane fight with us and the Germans. And some of the pieces of the cartridge belt flew down onto us. So then we knew we were going to be in combat. Then we met a man by the name of Colonel Boos, B-O-O-S. He was a regimental commander. And we got in to see him. Then they assigned us to various companies who had just completed some combat, a lot of combat. And I went into I Company, the 38th Infantry Regiment, 2nd Infantry Division. And I stayed with them. It was all during the war. I was a second lieutenant. After a year, the second lieutenant got promoted to a first lieutenant, if he lived. They always said over there that the life of a second lieutenant in combat was only good for about 20 minutes.
Jesus.
And that was the going rate.
He told me this before.
I lost a lot of good friends.
And then Henry proceeded to tell us about his experiences in the Battle of the Bulge, the biggest and bloodiest battle that American forces experienced in World War II, with more than 19,000 Americans killed.
Well, they say I Company went along in combat till we finally got into Germany. Finally. In combat all the way. In fact, we had a year over there actually that was, theoretically, was all pretty much all combat. We had a company commander who was a captain. I can't tell you, I don't know what his name was now. But we lost him, he got killed. The one that replaced him got killed. So there's 2 captains within this matter of 15 minutes. So life wasn't very valuable. So anyway, I got through the biggest part of it, all through the battles. We were in quite a few of them. I was in the Battle of the Bulge, all one winter that they said for 10 years it had never been as cold as it was there. Can I believe it?
I wonder what the food was like. Probably in
I lost some awfully good friends. Well, the last of it, as far as combat experience, because I had quite a lot of it, but the last of it came along just about the time that Germans gave up. In fact, I got wounded 8 days before the end of that war over there. And we were in a position that wasn't very good, and there was no cover or concealment. And we had 2 tanks with us. Well, of course, the Germans spied those tanks and they put everything they had on them. But in the meantime, I had found some cover for my men and was in the process of trying to hide those tanks because they were right out in it. Because we would have, if we'd had any cover, we would have continued on and taken out whatever resistance there was, but I didn't feel as it was worth it to lose a lot of men over it. So anyway, in the meantime, I did what I had to, and then at the end, me and my platoon sergeant jumped into a shell crater, and then I looked down at my pant leg.
Yeah, I know. I asked him 2 or 3 times if you would be.
And it was all bloody. However, it was what they call a lucky wound. Got you back in the fresh seats, the good food.
What did he say?
Saw a little bit of Paris.
It was what they call a lucky wound.
I
It
can't
got you
complain.
back in fresh sheets and a good meal.
Yeah, he mentioned
So I got
that
back
to me.
to my unit after all of
You
that.
got to see Paris.
It was only about, I guess, 7 days that the war ended. When I was back with my people, what there was left of them,